If you zoom forward 50 years or 100 years or 200 years, at some point, nations collapse. The way that new ones are formed is not through war and all that. It's through online communities, pooling resources and taking collective action. It was 2011. Julian Assange was like America's most wanted man. And I just left my sailboat and bought a one-way ticket to London and knocked on the front door where he was on house arrest. I was like volunteered for WikiLeaks for a bit. And then he introduced me to this woman in Iceland, Birgitta Jonsdottir. And Iceland was like such an interesting place at that time because their economy had just imploded overnight. Currency went down by like 95%. Well, that's what the IMF came in and tried to kind of bail them out or offer them a bailout package, which basically would mean everybody's in debt for $80,000 each for most of their life. And so they gather around Parliament, like 10% of the population, banged pots and pans for a week until they got a new political party in. And they have the oldest standing democracy in the world, you know? It's 1,100 years old, the Icelandic parliament. And they got a new political party. Now it's called the Pirate Party. But basically they were dedicated to make Iceland the world's safe haven for information and journalists and whistleblowers. 70% of the people under 40 were aligned with this new political party. People were fucking just really passionate about doing something that was for others. Once I realized the community relationships and our sense of purpose is also connected to that feeling, as well as the physical environments, there's like a way to bring these things together.
All right, Morgan, I am so stoked to be chatting with you today. Even more so because we're in a freaking Geoship. So I'm like fanboying out here big time because I've been stalking your website and social media for, I don't know, 3 years or something? I mean, you've been live online that long at least, right?
About that, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Actually, more like 5 years.
Okay, so it's been a few years and I'm just like tracking it. I'm like, when is this happening? You know, and we'll get into, you know, how long it takes to do something this scope. But I am someone, I've talked about this on the podcast many times. I think for my entire life, I've just had some sort of visceral awareness that spending our entire lives in square boxes is antithetical to our nature. And you just don't see right angles in nature. I mean, maybe every once in a while a crystal or something like that, but you know, there's no boxes anywhere, you know, in our natural world yet. For a number of reasons, probably just ease of engineering and building and economics, we've decided to, you know, begin our life in a box called a hospital room, in a bigger box called a hospital itself. Maybe you're putting an incubator, another box, then you're putting a crib, which is another box. You ride home in, you know, mom and dad's car, it's another box, et cetera, right? School. Our entire lives, we're like living in this strange, energetic confinement. And so I've always really been attracted to buildings that just have a natural flow, whether it's, you know, earth ships in New Mexico or the 70s wooden geodesic domes, like anything other than, you know, the boxes. And we were chatting the other day when we met, even in Los Angeles, where I spent most of my life, there's a lot of Mediterranean and Spanish style buildings, right? Where on the outside, they're kind of a box, but inside you'll at least have arched doorways and some arched windows. And there are curves, at least in, you know, different parts of the home. And even that feels better than being in a straight up box. And so, you know, that's my preface to just say like, dude, well done. I'm so excited to learn how all this came to be, where it is, where it's going, and share in the vision of a new earth where people have healthy, biocompatible, affordable housing. You know, it's just like, and it's also if you're someone who has, you know, a penchant for aesthetics and you want a really beautiful home, even like housing is not affordable to so many people, but if you want a really beautiful home, it's only affordable to, you know, a very small percentage of the population, right? So even if you work your ass off and you buy a home, you know, a tract home for $300,000 or $400,000, it's still going to be like a piece of shit. You know what I mean? It's not going to look great. It's going to be cheap building materials. It's not going to last, and it's not going to feel or look that great. You know, as happy as one might be to kind of own their own home. So I'm all in on this mission. And I think a good place to start would be your time living on a boat, which is really interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks. I ended up on a boat because I really wanted to build just a small home in nature and like teach myself to be an artist. I had an experience in my mid-20s that made me feel like nothing else matters but some long meditation retreats and just like connection to the natural world. So that was my focus. And I couldn't, you know, buying land and building like a cob home or some kind of natural building was not quite attainable and a lot of work, and I still wanted to travel. So I ended up restoring a classic wooden sailboat, in a barn for a year, then launching that and basically having a regenerative home in nature, and the boat is beautiful that way because there's just these moments of like the sails are just right and the wind and the waves, and you just feel like really in tune with the natural world. And you have a home you can cruise in. So
I know, it's funny because I've never thought of living at sea as off grid, but it's like you can't be any more off grid
yeah.
than floating around in a massive body of water. I mean, that takes a special kind of person. I don't think many people, as much as we're like, oh, I love nature and I love, being outdoors. It's like that's a whole other level of commitment.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it came from like a really strong determination to not participate in society and civilization that was like structural violence and just didn't align with my values. So it was really that feeling of like exit.
Did you have any hairball, life-threatening experiences out there?
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. There were right off the bat, we like left out of like Port Townsend, which is up in Washington, right? So we're about 300 miles offshore, all the way down to San Francisco, just kind of one big, tack. And we left too late in the year. It was just my brother and I. Neither one of us had really sailed that much before. We restored the boat ourselves in a barn. It was an old wooden boat, so it's getting hammered, and you're like, is it going to hold up? And it's just, there were no stars, there was no moon. It was just wind and waves for, 4 days or so. And you just like, all you can do to kind of like stare at the little red light on the compass and be like, wake up, take the way.
Oh my
Very
God.
treacherous,
Do you get seasick?
Not really, no, because you're living on it long enough. And
Do you acclimate to it?
yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be, there's a number of fears I would have about spending extended periods of time on the sea, but the main one is being seasick. That's like one of the worst feelings a human can feel. It happened once. I was on a deep sea fishing kind of thing out of Mexico when I was a kid, and I learned very quickly that you can't turn around when you're on a chartered boat. Like you can't be the one guy that's like, yeah, I'm not really into this. It's like once you're in, and you're not going back to the shore until everyone feels complete, And I was like, yeah, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah, that's the thing with sailing too. It's like when something goes wrong, I don't feel like it. It's either you do it or we're gonna die. So you're totally in it and totally committed.
And tell me about the samadhi-like experience you had that led up to that.
Yeah, I bought a one-way ticket to Bangkok when I was like 24 and kind of leaving the tech world and whatnot. And I ended up just meeting these two 70-year-old hippies in Zhenghong, China. And they had been like cruising, all around the world for like 30 years or something. And one raised his kids with white horses and peacocks and kerosene lamps on the, volcano side of the volcano in Maui. And they were going to get this, the top of the stupa that's now in Paia. So I got to like tag along with these guys for a couple of months through Tibet, meeting all these Rinpoches and whatnot that they had met multiple times because they'd been there a dozen times in the last 20 years. So that was kind of like the opening to basically transcendental experience, And so I started reading the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, and I think a year of travel during that time, and then after through India and Nepal and then in Europe. And I was laying on a beach in Portugal one morning, and had some music that was like trance music on my, which I wasn't really listening to that kind of electronic music at that point, but it was on the headphones, and I stood up and I was just like, felt levity, luminous, synchronicity. It was like walk across the street and the person would smile at the right time and the bird would fly down. It felt like a really like a psychedelic experience, but there was no psychedelics, and it lasted for like a day and a half. And
Really?
like, nothing else matters now except probing into that, because almost like some level of anger at some level to be like, wow, how did I not know about this? You know, is this how many people are operating in this way? And so I got, you know, I started doing some long Vipassana meditation and then work with the plant medicines and whatnot to explore that.
Do you think that it was a culmination of being surrounded by those higher states of consciousness for a period of time that sort of seeded something within you? Because it doesn't sound like you were doing on the beach doing some intensive breath work, or it wasn't something that you forced or brought about. It seems to be just kind of a natural, you know.
Yeah, I think it was like the culmination of, you know, a year of kind of seeking in a way. Like that was, the whole life was kind of just about following that thread of, you know, synchronicity and not necessarily having a plan and just allowing things to unfold. And then, you know, laying on a beach, like you have light from all directions, you're connected to the earth. You know, the natural conditions there, I think, is a lot of what we're aiming to recreate in the homes of the future. And yeah, I think it was just a combination of, you know, set and setting.
Yeah, those kind of experiences are, I think, exceedingly rare, you know, and oftentimes those that have them, if they choose to sort of share what they've experienced, they tend to become the spiritual leaders of our time, right? You think of someone like Eckhart Tolle, whose story is he's just a normal guy having, you know, a less than fulfilling and inspiring life, and he's sitting on a bench, and all of a sudden, just gets hit out of the blue, and then the course of his life changes forever, and then the course of, you know, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people by now, whose lives have also changed as a reverberation of the experience he had. So it seems like in sort of a parallel way, the changes that took place within you are now manifesting in a way that's going to impact so many more people.
Yeah, I mean, that's my, you know, my dharma, I think, is to support society and like creating the conditions to make that like thin the veil between this, you know, everyday reality that we experience and that unity consciousness, or whatever we want to term it, you know?
So after that point, when was the seed planted? When did you start to make the connection on the fact that we live in boxes and there might be other ways that we could live that would be more supportive to our vitality and harmony in general?
It was quite a bit later. You know, there was another kind of phase in my life that happened after that. Then I restored the wooden sailboat, and 5 years or so into sailing around the Pacific, I was basically, you know, John Perry Barlow, the founder of the Electronic Freedom Foundation, he's like a lyricist for the Grateful Dead, said, "The information war has officially begun and the battlefield is WikiLeaks and you are the troops." Right? And that whole time sailing, I was really fascinated with the I Ching, this ancient book of changes, you know, 2,500 years old. And it just kind of like, you can kind of ask these questions and it gives you a sort of a fields of meaning, or like, this is the situation that's most likely to happen on this path in this time. And so I was using the I Ching a lot just because it seemed right and it was just really fascinating. So I felt like freedom of information was really crucial. It was 2011. Julian Assange was like America's most wanted man. And I just left my sailboat and bought a one-way ticket to London and knocked on the front door where he was on house arrest. And he ended up, I was like volunteered for WikiLeaks for a bit. And then he introduced me to this woman in Iceland, Birgitta Jonsdottir. And Iceland was like such a interesting place at that time because their economy had just, you know, imploded, you know, overnight, reduced, the currency went down by like 95%.
Really?
That was like
Wow, I didn't know
2009.
that. So they had like a Argentina moment. People walking down the street with shopping carts full of $100 bills that buy you a loaf of bread kind of thing.
Yeah, well, that's what the IMF came in and tried to kind of bail them out or offer them a bailout package, which basically would mean,
Servitude.
everybody's in debt
Yeah.
for $80,000 each for most of their life,
Yeah.
And so they gather around Parliament, like 10% of the population, banged pots and pans for a week until they got a new political party in. And they have the oldest standing democracy in the world, It's 1,100 years old, the Icelandic parliament. And they got a new political party. It was called the Movement Party then. Now it's called the Pirate Party. But basically they were dedicated to like using internet technology to crowdsource a revision to their constitution to make Iceland the world's safe haven for information and journalists and whistleblowers. So it was like this thing that they were doing that was like for the future of humankind, like it was evolutionary purpose, And because something like 70% of the people under 40 were aligned with this new political party, and you could just feel that same feeling I felt on a beach in Portugal, felt on the streets in Reykjavik, because
Interesting.
People were fucking just really passionate about doing something that was for others, right? And that evolutionary purpose. So basically combining, once I realized like the community relationships and our sense of purpose is also connected to that feeling, as well as the physical environments, then Geoship is like a way to bring these things together.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's not the motive and the vision is much bigger than just each individual family having their own home, right? It's like the capacity to ease the friction to communal living in a way that's scalable, sustainable, where we could essentially just divorce ourselves from the matrix and do our own thing over here collectively.
Yeah.
More of a collective vision.
Yeah. And communal, people have a lot of different kind of interpretations of what that means. And I think, there's it's a huge spectrum from like a kibbutz and, where everybody's pooling their resources and really in community versus like the typical neighborhoods of today. And there's this whole spectrum in between. And that's where we want to really create a platform so that people can come together in a digital space, like align on what their shared purpose is and participate in the design of their village and build villages that have certain features that support, community relationships. And there's a lot of things you can do in the built environment to just like support coming together.
Do you think your mineral supplements are doing the job? Well, look, it's great that you know how mineral deficient we all are, and you're doing something about it. But here's the deal, all right? Most of those pills out there are salt-based, and your body barely absorbs them. So basically, you pop a capsule, feel good about your life choices for a few minutes, and then pee it right out. And that's not health. That's just expensive urine. But I get it. I used to be that guy, stacking all the mineral supplements, looking for better sleep or energy, but never really feeling a difference. But eventually, I found Beam Minerals, and that's when everything changed. Beam is made from something called humate, one of the most mineral-dense substances on Earth. Beam extracts that ancient material, then purifies it into a concentrated liquid that is loaded with every essential mineral your body needs. And you'd think something that comes from the earth might taste nasty, but it actually tastes like water, and it works like rocket fuel. Ever since I've been on my daily Beam regimen, my energy's been steadier, my digestion has improved, and my brain, well, there's way less fog and way more focus, because that's what minerals do. So to get yourself fully mineralized, head over to beamminerals.com and use the code Luke to get 20% off your order. Because here's what's up. If you want your minerals to work, the solution is really simple. You need to absorb them, and that's why I take Beam. One more time for the kids in the back, that's beamminerals.com, and again, that code is Luke.
One thing that's interesting too is that I think there is a certain ethos and texture to the type of person who would be attracted to the Geoship domes and the model, right? Whereas like if you just move into sort of a fabricated tract home neighborhood, like no one there has any alignment inherent, that's based on their choice to live in that particular tract, right? It's like, oh, it's a new housing tract down the road, and it's affordable, and they have nice lawns, right? It's like there's nothing that's drawing a particular demographic to that, right? And so you have diversity, but kind of diversity to a fault, because there's no unifying ethos or principle there for people. So I would think built into what you're doing, it's going to be a certain frequency of person that's like, ooh, yeah, that sounds good to me. I mean, even when I look on your website and, there's some like renderings of different communities and things, a guy like me looks at that and I'm like, what am I doing? I got to get out of my neighborhood. I want to live there with some cool, like-minded people, right? Where so that kind of communal living is much, I don't know, I think that's a different idea than many people have when they apply negative connotations to like a commune, right? Where there's got to be a cult leader and some sort of buy-in, indoctrination into a belief system or something like that. And then you have, the obvious issues with, the fact that power tends to attract people that are corruptible. So throughout history, from the 60s on, we see all these failed attempts at communal living, because they seem to get corrupted by the fact that everyone is following a leader, right? There's like a weird sort of system of authority or manipulation and exploitation that's there. It seems like this would allow for more of an egalitarian kind of setup. And you already have a baseline of people who are relatively on the same page.
Yeah, I think most people are on the same page about like round peg and square peg. It's like, it's just not conventional. So we're going to do things differently. I think of, there's this little dome community that has existed in UC Davis for like 40 years on campus, right?
Really?
And it's called like Domies or something. And there's this little video, and the guy's like, standing out on his porch with a cup of coffee in his underwear. And he's like, yeah, we like it here because we get to make up the rules and do things differently. And that's it. It's like we get to open a new paradigm of innovation in how we live and work, and start to, by bringing people together in the digital space before the place is built, you start to be able to kind of create something that is a legacy that you want to leave for future generations, and is really integrated into the local ecosystems, and regenerative, meaning positive to the ecosystems, positive to your health, positive to your community relationships, and kind of get beyond housing as like a commodity where you're just buying one to step into another.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point, because I think the way most of us look at housing is from a survival standpoint. Like, we don't think of building communities or building a home or buying a home as, hey, let's like build this out into something bigger. You're like, I just need to be safe from the elements and from bad characters out there, right? It's just like, you want a place that has climate control and electricity and just the basic necessities, but there is kind of just this, the underlying motive really is survival. You're never really thinking about, oh, how could we integrate this into a new way of existing on the earth together, in more of a cooperative sense. I mean, even the neighborhood that I live in, all my neighbors are really nice and friendly, but no one hangs out, because we're not similar enough to hang out, right? We have maybe some basic things in common, but I don't know. I chat with my neighbors when I walk the dog, and we're not into the same stuff, right? I start talking about things and I can see them kind of go, this guy's weird. I talk about EMF or whatever, and they're just like, they glaze over, I'm like, do you guys have a smart meter? Yeah, everything's smart in our house. I'm just like, oh God, okay. That's the end of that thread,
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't think of my neighborhood or my home as anything more than like, it's a safe place for my wife and I to build a life together, but it doesn't extend beyond our property line. Outside of that is kind of, it's the others, it's the otherness, right? And even though we're copacetic, I'm not motivated to try and build anything with them, essentially. And I'm sure the same would be true for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, today neighborhoods are built pretty much like they were for the last 100 years, where it's just developers and banks like buy land and build houses and sell them to people. And people who are living there don't participate in the design of the neighborhood. And a lot of times not in the design of the home either. So when you can just bring more participation and more like ownership, and then also like remove a lot of the limitations that are traditionally placed on it, then it's really like, and I think that the timing right now is so like there's mass agreement that we need to do things differently, right? And if we don't participate and create this future, more beautiful world that we want for our kids and grandkids, then we're going to inherit the one that's created for us. And
Yeah,
it's a really good time.
The commodification of survival-based housing, right? And only the people who put some effort into it and are really savvy win, right? You might like buy a family home, you sit on it for a number of years, you sell it, maybe, you had a little bit of a gain, because you built some equity, but then because of inflation, it's not like you're going to really upgrade, because now when you're buying your next home, you're paying market price now based on inflation, and the valuation of the home that you want to move, quote, up into has also gone up, right? I think about that. I'm like, oh, our house is worth X amount of dollars. If we wanted to move, I don't even know that we would get a nicer house than the one we have right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like you're kind of caught in this like loop throughout the course of your life. I mean, not to speak even of the generational impact and kind of the legacy element of it, but if you're just a person who kind of owns one home at a time, your quality of life is not necessarily going to improve unless you somehow crack the code on making way more money. You're kind of just going to exist at a certain level of sustenance,
Yeah. And that's where I think when you bring people together first in the digital space, it also opens up this whole opportunity of like network communities, right? So you're not just, we can explore new forms of currency and ways of financing and whatnot. So you might not just own the house, you might own, the whole village that it's part of. You might own, shares in the technology company that built the homes, and then you can transfer your equity from one village to another and have more mobility than ever and be able to kind of travel around the world.
Right. Oh, I'm getting ideas. Because I figured out at this point in life, I don't really like living in the same place all the time, because no place is perfect all the time, especially Texas. God bless it. I love you, Texas. But man, there are times of the year there that it gets pretty monotonous and brutal. So I'm already, visiting here in Nevada City. I'm like, I'm in. Like, I want to live here so bad. Got to negotiate with the wife about that, see what page she's on. But I also wouldn't want to be here in the winter. I'm not a snow guy. I'm not in, you get below 40, I'm out. Right? So I'm already thinking, oh, cool. So if you have an online community of kind of Geoship people that are all integrated, I'm thinking, future now when these exist everywhere, right? You're like, cool. You like the snow? You come take our spot in, January and February. We'll be in your Costa Rica spot because you don't want to be there when it's hot or whatever, right? It's like this idea of nomadic living could be less brutal than the current, like, I got a backpack and I'm just going to wing it staying in hostels, right? It's like you could actually live kind of comfortably in different places and have more mobility.
Yeah, and it's interesting, the round home has been associated with nomadic living since, you think of the indigenous tribes and whatnot, a lot of times round homes, and they're moving. And I think this is part of the new paradigm that's coming, is like more mobility than ever, and the ability to just kind of live, transfer your equity from one place to another.
Yeah. Epic.
Like own a home, but not be feel like it's holding you down.
Yeah. I kind of have that feeling now, loving it here so much. I'm like, okay, how would this work? Because I like our home in Texas. I don't want to sell it. If you don't sell it, how do you get the money to get another one, kind of thing, which we're going to talk about. The affordability of what you're doing is like bananas. For those listening, we're going to put the show notes today at lukestory.com/Morgan. So any of the links or anything we drop will be found in your show notes. And I'm going to transition in a moment to the actual structures and like the nuts and bolts of it.
Okay.
Even though there aren't nuts and bolts as far as I can tell.
No.
But the last thing on that communal living that I want to touch on is the fact that I don't think many people realize how difficult homesteading or living off grid is. Not that I've tried it, because I can kind of tell it's a bitch. But I think many people these days are starting to look at alternative ways of living and want to move out of cities and things like that, right? But there's this, I think, kind of a fantasy that, I don't want to work 40 hours a week for some corporate job. So I'm going to take my family and we're going to go live somewhere remotely and just, get some animals and raise our own food and have, solar batteries, yada, yada, and then like just be chilling. I think that the reality of that is that if you are, say, a single family unit that wants to be self-sustaining, I think you're going to be working your ass off, fixing fences, one of your goats gets sick. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like even just gardening, dude, is like so much work. And so I think that, again, I'm speaking to someone who's not tried any of this, but I'm very interested in the idea. So I observe other people's experience quite a lot. I think having a shared community, if you wanted to do, say, a homestead thing and be really, sustain your own way of life and build, grow your own food, yada, yada, you need kind of people that specialize in different elements of that lifestyle coming together in a cooperative way. I suck at building. Like, I'm not the guy that can fix anything, but I don't know what I'm good at, maybe running my mouth. But like, I would not have that role, and I wouldn't want to learn that role because it's not something I enjoy doing. So then, well, who's going to do that? Hire someone that, you know what I mean, from the outside? Like, how about you just, everyone in a community kind of has their skill set and are doing work about which they are not only skilled, but also passionate, right? Where it's kind of like takes a village thing. What's your take on the feasibility of living off grid, homesteading, and so on as a single family unit versus having multiple people come together?
Yeah, well, I think they both can be done, and a lot of times it doesn't feel like work, when it's just what you do. Like you sweep your front deck as much as you get your hands in the earth and harvest the bounty for the season, kind of thing, and mend the fences. I think it can just feel like, chop wood, carry water, like it's your life and practice. And I, there's some of the kind of village templates that we're working on actually here on this 100 acres that we're on now. It works out pretty well to have these kind of little homesteads that might be 2 or 3 acres each. And then there's another one next to it, right? So you're having kind of the homestead privacy experience. So it's not like communal living in that way, but there's another domestead next to you.
Domestead, I like that. Right.
And
so when we think of communal living, it's like, say you don't vibe with everyone in your community. I mean, that's going to be an issue, right? You might meet someone and you vibe initially, and then, you get to know their character in a deeper way, and maybe you're not in alignment, right? So when I think of communal living, it's like, we have to go to the mess hall tonight where everyone eats together and things. Whereas what you're describing is like, cool, we could be together, but not that together.
Yeah.
You guys are over there
totally.
in a couple acres. We got 100 acres to play with. It's like you're not stepping on each other's toes in that kind of setup.
Yeah. Just like like I said, there's a huge spectrum between like today's neighborhood and a kibbutz. And there we can create this whole kind of space in between and play with bits and pieces of each that works.
Cool. So let's go into the actual Geoship domes. I guess maybe we could start kind of with the origins of Buckminster Fuller, and when these kind of started to gain popularity. What are some of the other versions people have tried or are currently doing, and then we'll get into like how yours are made and what makes them so unique. And for those listening, I highly encourage you to watch the video version of this, because I'm going to get some B-roll from you. And so we'll have, not only can you watch the conversation in here where we're actually inside the model dome, but also just really see, all aspects of what these things are like, because they're really incredible. So definitely you guys want to check out the video version of this.
Well, they say age comes with wisdom, And I'm hoping that's true. But unfortunately, it also comes with wrinkles. So I'm going to let you in on a secret that's been soothing out my complexion and keeping my skin firm and toned. It's the red light face mask from Bond Charge. You might know Bond Charge as a holistic wellness brand with a huge range of science-based products to optimize your life. I'm a big fan and have been for quite a while. Their red light face mask emits both near-infrared and red light, helping to boost the production of elastin and collagen in your skin. Treatment time's about 20 minutes a day, and because it doesn't obstruct your eyes, it doesn't even have to interrupt your flow. I just strap mine on, set a timer, and go about my day. Another great feature is that it's cordless and rechargeable. Plus, it puts out literally zero EMF, which is super important, especially on a sensitive area like your face. So to get your red light face mask, here's what you do. Go to bondcharge.com/lifestylist and use the code lifestylist to get 15% off. Oh, and unlike other brands, Bond Charge very intelligently removed the blue and green light so you can be sure the mask won't disrupt your circadian rhythm or your sleep if you use it at night. Again, that's BONCHARGE, bondcharge.com/lifestylist, and that code again is also lifestylist.
So take me back to kind of the inception of the dome idea as a place where you could domicile.
Yeah, totally. And just to clarify, this is like an engineering prototype. So the product that we're first going to market with is a much bigger 2-bedroom, 2-bath, like home. And so Buckminster Fuller, was like, I think it was 1922, and his 4-year-old daughter died of polio and meningitis, I think it was. And he felt like it had a lot to do with the apartment, the damp apartment that he was living in, that he actually participated in building, a decade before. And when his daughter passed, he got to a place in life where he was like on the verge of suicide. He was actually like walk out to the end of the dock and jump in the water. And he said, a voice came in his head about that time. And it said, if the future of humanity depended on who you are and what you do, who would you be? What would you do? Right? It's just like, what power do we have as the individual? And that led him to basically the home as a product, like completely transforming the housing industry by industrializing the home. So he invented this Dymaxion home. And the first a demonstration of it was like 1927. So it was about 5 years after he lost his daughter. And then he just devoted his entire life, his whole life. He lived to be in mid-80s. And this was like, late 30s, on how to transform the housing industry in a really similar way to what we're doing here with Geoship. It's really the continuation of Buckminster Fuller's mission. He kind of refined that mission statement about 20 years into it, where it was like, to make the world work for 100% of humanity in the shortest possible time through spontaneous cooperation without ecological offense or the disadvantage of anyone.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, taking that beautiful, it's such a it's a regenerative mission statement. And we've put that into a perpetual purpose-driven trust that basically guides everything that Geoship does, and it can never be changed. So really continue that mission. And Bucky's whole, the foundation of his approach was like, one, to think from first principles. So really fundamentally with housing, it's like the materials, the geometry, the method of manufacturing is kind of the real basics. He introduced the Dymaxion house in 1927, and there was, 20 years later, he invented the math that made the geodesic dome really possible, right? So how to industrialize the round building. And it happens to be this, flower of life geometry that is so,
that's crazy,
connected to our.
And for those that are not seeing the video, the interesting thing about the geodesic dome and its shape, obviously it's like a half circle, right? And is that it seems to be made of triangles. Mm-hmm. So was that part of Bucky's math? I mean, is that like what brought the dome forward? Was him figuring out that that's how you create the shape in a way that's very durable?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have the math or the computer technology to figure out how to put these triangles together to make a dome before. If you think of just like it's super easy to know how to stand up a wall and put something on top of it. right? It's like doesn't take geometry and math.
I could probably build a small box. Put it that way. I can't build shit.
So Bucky introduced this whole like synergetic math that just made this, we could calculate the sizes of things and be able to build these.
And I'm assuming having the schematics, based on math makes scalability in terms of size pretty easy, right? It's like, well, more triangles makes a bigger dome kind of thing.
Basically, there's frequencies of the geodesic that, you can kind of have more, basically more hexagons around each pentagon. There's 5 pentagons and one at the top on the dome. And so you can go up in frequency. It makes the triangles smaller and basically this whole, and it's all based on, the flower of life. Is the flower of life in 3D, right? If you just made a little arc around each of those lines that are, the triangle there, it's flower of life.
That's insane. So if you flattened it out, it's the flower of life.
Mm-hmm.
Did he know that?
I mean, he was inspired by, snowflakes and seeing that geometry in all throughout nature. And then they found out later, right about Bucky knew that they found this out, but it was right towards the end of his life where they basically discovered the carbon-60 molecule, they named it the Buckminster Fullerene.
Yeah.
And just found
I take a lot of that
shape.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it's like that is the fractal element of nature, right? Where you have a tiny piece that's part of a greater whole and it just replicates itself over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. My wife just found a giant pine cone right after I was watching something about how life-supporting fractal shapes are for us to just be with and to visually see. And then the next morning, she's like, I'm taking this giant pine cone home. I was like, we're supposed to stare at that. It's really good for you, There's something about that when you see that in nature, right?
Yeah.
The Fibonacci you see everywhere and snails and everywhere else, right? There's something about us, an inner knowing that we're attracted to that kind of source code.
Yeah, there's studies that just show, exposure to fractal geometry brings a feeling of kind of relaxation. And there's, like we're working with an organization called Biogeometry.
Yeah.
Their whole
Dr. Kareem.
Yeah. I think you said.
Yeah, he's been on the show. Yeah. We'll link to that in the show notes at lukestory.com/Morgan.
Yeah.
Incredible guy. He sent me his book, Hidden something. It's like thick as a brick. I got like 10 pages in. I'm just like, it's so dense, But there's something there, but you have to have a certain kind of intellect to be able to really grasp it.
Yeah. The explanation that I picked up from him was like this idea that we're in the ether, right? There's imagine there's water all around us. And everything that moves puts out a wake behind it. When that wake hits a physical object, it changes its pattern, just like a boat moving through the water and the wake hitting a buoy. So biogeometry is this whole study of how to create physical environments that make harmonic patterns in the ether, right? So it's like creating the statues, the furniture, the housing design, the village design, so that you have this vibrational quality that is this kind of centering energy that they measure for. And, the centering energy is, of course, here in the dome, it's balanced and centered is kind of, and we're applying a lot of biogeometry principles, but we're also emanating that about 80 feet now from the dome. And as we layer on more of the biogeometry and start to measure these biological effects in the dome, we can really get that to maybe emanate a few hundred feet and then it's connected to a whole village that is creating this vibrational field that is actually measuring heart rate variability, measuring brainwave coherence, measuring with the GDV camera to show that this is something that is biologically supportive and we can engineer for it.
Holy shit. That's so epic. Well, when I first walked in here the other day, I mean, you never know what's placebo and what's not. If you have the expectation that you're going to feel really good in this space, well, you probably feel pretty good, right? Because you're setting yourself up for success. But I mean, objectively, it feels really good in here.
Yeah, we have studied deeply into biogeometry as well as like the Vastu Shastra, these kind of ancient temple building sciences. And, what they all come down to, we believe, is that one, you want geometry that focuses into the center, right? So it's fractal geometry folding into the center. And you want materials that have a high dielectric constant. Basically, they hold a charge, just like the capacitors and electronic devices. Like you put this material in your hand and it wants to merge with your energy field because it's literally holding a charge. You combine those two things together, and that's like the stone circle pyramid effect, where you're basically restoring centripetal charge forces. So the charge is holding into itself, which is the opposite of radiation, charge that's radiating outward from a point. It's like restoring that centripetal charge.
So it's like, so it's kind of like an implosion of radiation rather than, radiating away.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
So I think you'll tell how well an architect did in the future by, seeing how well plants grow, by measuring seed germination, by measuring heart rate variability and brainwave coherence. And we can really like take architecture to beyond just shelter for survival, but actually supports.
Well, that's what's crazy is, as I was mentioning, we look at building as just survival, right? And the elements and just shelter. It's like a defensive position to begin with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rather than, harmonious position where you're actually wanting to integrate the energies of the cosmos, the energies of nature, and amplify them into the space rather than distort them. And, the thing is, like, I think the number one, cause of all illness is the fact that we live in boxes, and not just because of the energetics of it, but obviously mold and EMF and airflow and just all the things. If the lack of full spectrum light, the whole thing, it's like, if we were just outdoors more, we'd be golden. So my idea is always, well, how can we take the best of the outdoors and still not freeze to death or die from the elements, right? And that seems to be what you're doing. So it's not just about something that looks beautiful, the communal aspect that we've covered, but it's like, whoa, what if we lived in structures that actually made you more healthy instead of the opposite?
Yeah. And the material, you can kind of think of it as like a third skin. Where does your body end? We believe we have a bioelectric field, then your body is not ending, at the end of your skin. So do you want to live in a structure where, this is bone material. It's potassium, magnesium, calcium, phosphate. It's mimicking the chemical composition of bone. The whole structure is that. So it's just biologically resonant materials, because this is just like you'd want to wear silk and wool and things that also have a high dielectric
not
constant.
Polyester. Yeah.
Allow your aura to like unpack and breathe.
That's insane. So I did a show on the biofield with Eileen, mispronounce your last name, McCusick. My apologies, Eileen, if you ever hear this. You're an amazing healer and, all the things. Put that in the show notes. But she was explaining to me with tuning forks, how she can kind of measure distortions in your biofield, and they radiate out quite a ways. And she can actually like find points in your timeline where you experience traumas and things like that, where there will be a glitch in your biofield. It's really interesting. And it's, she has a way to quantify that. So to your point, I love the idea of merging the human biofield in a field that supports it.
Yeah, right. So imagine you're coming into a space that is just helps your body come back into kind of homeostasis or coherence. And then when we're in the space together, because I'm, my heart rate variability is incoherence, we're able to connect with one another, emotionally, where that weave is there. So we can actually deepen our relationships to one another. And, so tying it back to Buckminster Fuller, though, he was, had developed, after 30 years of working on trying to industrialize home building, he invented the geodesic dome. And then, it kind of initiated this whole like back to the land movement, in the 70s and whatnot, where people were exiting and building. And Bucky called them wooden spaceships, right? It's like it's the right geometry, but he knew if they weren't being industrialized, it would be, he predicted it'd be 30 or 50 years until a new material science would arrive to really enable the mass manufacturing of the geodesic home. And that's what this material was really developed at US National Labs in like the late 90s, early 2000s for use in the nuclear industry. And now we've just applied it to architecture and combined with like the most efficient manufacturing method, which is basically injection molding and formative manufacturing. So it's something that is just incredibly scalable. That's why we've got just an awesome team from Tesla and SpaceX and Apple, all these top-notch engineers who have joined, because we're transforming, one of the most exciting products, that we humans spend most of their time in. And we're doing it from physics first principles and have this like, the vision and the market. It's like really exciting place to
It's crazy that innovation has kind of ignored this aspect of the human experience, right? I mean, we're like really excited about a flatter TV, right?
Right.
We actually live in a thing. Like, what about the thing we're living in? Not all the crap that you put in it, that it's better designed, which I would argue much of the design is getting worse. I mean, try to operate a modern refrigerator or something. I mean, it's just the complexity starts to just eat its own tail at a certain point. And you're just like, dude, I want an old Ford V8 truck, the washing machine I had in 1974 that, lasted however many years. It's like, the simplicity kind of gets lost in the innovation, but we're innovating things that really don't need it. It's kind of just a way to kind of remarket the same base product to the consumer.
Yeah,
right?
And that's what's exciting from, Buckminster Fuller had a similar approach where he thought of the home as a completely integrated product, right? So imagine you don't get like, you get like an owner's manual for your home that includes how everything works. You can put on the augmented reality glasses and see in the wall and have a helper there that's teaching you how to do any kind of service or maintenance of things. And it's like the home as a fully integrated product. So everything is kind of gets better and better and better over time, as
right.
That doesn't happen today. We're just like bringing all these different pieces together.
Yeah. And also the durability factor. Before I owned a home, which has only been, 4 years or so now. It's like always the dream, right, of owning a home. And any of my friends who own homes are like, yeah, it's nice, but man, it gets really expensive. You'll see. And I'm like, what? No way. You're building equity. You're not paying rent and like paying someone else's mortgage off. Dude, I mean, anytime you got to fix anything in your house, I don't know if it's the same everywhere, but in Texas, I mean, it's like thousands of dollars sometimes for something that seems relatively simple. And so I like the idea of durability. And also I could see your vision, right, in the future where we have an AI-driven virtual reality manual for the Geoship. And you're like, oh, something weird's going on over here. And it's just like, cool. You put on the goggles and it just tells you exactly what to do as if you were the expert tradesman that knew how to do it.
Mm-hmm. It's a really complete new paradigm in what a house can be. And there's so many different, it's an opportunity to create these kind of local regenerative ecosystems, right? Because the house, there's so much around it that can be integrated in. And how can we use this as a tool to really inspire, regenerative communities?
Check this out. With everything that's going on with our food, air, and water, detoxing is no longer optional. And if you really want vitality, it's an absolute must. One of the best ways to remove toxins from the body is through sweating. But did you know that not all sweat is created equal? When you hop into an infrared sauna, the light is absorbed deeply by the body, causing your cells to vibrate. And that raises core temperature and enhances natural metabolic processes, pulling out nasty toxins like aluminum, cadmium, and even mercury. The sauna I use on the reg is my Amplify full spectrum sauna from Sunlighten. Sunlighten's patented and science-backed technology provides the most effective, high-quality, near, mid, and far infrared available. They actually have 4 different sauna collections, each of which features different combinations of light and varying aesthetics to fit both your needs and your decor. And with any Sunlighten sauna, you can rest assured that you're going to sweat fast, sweat deep, and support your detox. And by the way, you can learn what makes Sunlighten my top pick on the Lifestylist podcast, episode 477. So make sure to check that out if you want the deep dive. And then when you're ready to treat yourself to the world's best infrared sauna, visit get.sunlighten.com/LukeStory and use the code LukeStory to save up to $600. You can also find that link in the show notes on your podcast app. And obviously, it would make zero sense to detox while exposing yourself to high levels of EMF. And that's why Sunlighten designed their heating panels to produce almost none, so you can relax and detox safely. Again, that link is get.sunlighten.com/LukeStory, and the code is LukeStory.
Let's talk about the bioceramic, the material itself. That to me is really interesting. We went and looked at the factory the other day. I think, if I remember right, you said that, it's a chemical process that where the materials cure in like 7 to 20 minutes or something and requires no heat. It's just room temperature. You pour a mold and it's like, now it's rock hard. It's like a freaking crystal that's like bulletproof. Did I get that right?
Yeah, and it's a chemical process, but it's not, people sometimes associate chemicals with like petrochemicals. It's not, it's a crystal chemistry, right? It's like same way that crystals form. You have like an acid-base reaction. And that's what's unique about this. It's a whole new class of materials, and it's really rare to have a whole new class of materials. We pretty much had like metal, wood, concrete, petrochemicals as like the 4 main building materials. And now this is like part of a new class called like geopolymers or chemically bonded ceramics. They're kind of cousins. And it's basically a ceramic material. So it's highly crystalline with covalent and ionic bonding, but it's like a cement in that it doesn't require high heat, and it's just, mixing powder and water together at room temperature. And it's like an epoxy in that it's forming molecular bonds with like wood and with metal. The bond strength is better than the aerospace grade epoxies. So when you combine those things together, it enables, the geodesic dome to be really, really efficient to mass manufacture through injection molding parts that pack into a shipping container, arrive on site, and the whole home is like functions as a monolithic structure. There's no gaskets and screws and whatnot.
That's like when I was like nuts and bolts earlier. I thought, I don't think you need those.
Yeah, it becomes essentially monolithic on site.
And what about moisture, airflow? I know that like mold can't grow on this material, which is incredible. I mean, that's something that thankfully there's more public awareness around now. But I mean, I think half the people out there that are sick probably have mold in their home and they just don't know it. So how does air quality, airflow, moisture, mold, all that stuff play into it?
Yeah, I mean, the material is breathable, and there's nothing, like you said, it's all inorganic, so there's nothing for mold to grow on. And it kind of, is waterproof and breathable. So water vapor can pass through, but water obviously can't pass through in ceramic. And, there's nothing for insects to eat. There's nothing for a flood. It basically dries out because there's nothing for mold to grow on. And you can repair and resurface it with the same material it's made from. So you never have to like pull off the roof or pull off the siding and throw it in a dump and put new stuff on. You're just like spraying a very thin coat of the ceramic like a paint, and it can be resurfaced after a long time in the future, 50 or 100 years.
It also, just from the touch of the material, it seems very durable versus like a stick home with stucco sprayed on it. I mean, I feel like you could just like put a shovel through the side of my house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It looks durable, but you start messing around with it and you go, dude, this thing, I mean, it wouldn't take much to knock this thing over, whatever force that would be. I don't know, but I don't feel like homes are as secure as we pretend they are. And you see this in hurricane. I don't live in a place where there's hurricanes, but hurricanes just pick up whole stick homes, just like throw it down the street and it's gone, It's like insane.
Yeah, I mean, this is basically an ultra high performance fiber reinforced ceramic concrete, right? So there's a lot of fibers in it, both continuous fiber, so like, weaves, as well as chopped fiber. And you can like drive a nail through it and it just makes a hole, not a crack. And the compressive strength is, 4 times what concrete is.
Really?
A very high performance.
So say we had a concrete structure here versus this, and a mid-sized tree fell on top of it. What would the difference be? And I'm not, you're not claiming these are tree proof, right?
Well, yeah, it's because there's so many different sized trees.
Yeah. But I mean, that's something that happens, right? You see people's homes just, the whole wing gets crushed from a tree they ignored or something like that. But it feels like in terms of like brute force impact, this would be much more durable than the things we're building.
Yeah, definitely more durable than a conventional house. And, in terms of like hurricane impact resistance and whatnot, it's like a 2x4 shot at like 45 miles an hour, right? Is no problem. When you get to like Miami-Dade ratings of 90 mile an hour, 13-pound 2x4, I think it is. We have to make the walls just a little thicker to have like the hurricane package, but way more durable than a conventional house and easy to repair without replacing.
Yeah. And you were explaining the other day, we're in fire country here in Nevada City. It seems to be on top of mind for most people that live and build here. So I watch the real estate listings and you look at like fire scores, always like 10 out of 10. I'm like, okay, noted. But you were saying that, say if, God forbid, a fire raged through here, that this thing would just be left standing.
Yeah, it'd be fine. With concrete is like hydraulically bonded. So the water, like if you expose it to very high heat for a period of time, it'll pretty much disintegrate or become very, very weak. This is not like that. It's a covalent and ionic bonding, more like a ceramic. And, you also like defensible space and kind of the homestead or village design is important too. But combining these things together, like nothing that can ignite. And then also a lot of times where fires start around here is like the embers come in the roof vents and the fire starts in the attic kind of thing. And you don't have that situation in this either. So nothing to burn and nothing for fires to.
That's so epic. So essentially, if fire blazed through here, it might just look charred on the outside, like the inside just is sitting just like this.
Yeah, I think so.
That's crazy.
I don't know if it would even look charred on the outside. I don't think it would look charred unless something is rubbing against it.
Wow. Wow.
Because usually you're going for like 30 feet of defensible space. Fires come through quick too.
Right.
It's not like
if there's nothing to burn, they're just going to burn through it and they move on, right? It's like they're not going to just sit here and keep going. There's no fuel for it. Let's talk about EMF, which is just like such a important topic to me. It's something I talk about all the time. So we're staying here in a number of different Airbnbs, and people might think I'm nuts. I think people that don't deal with their EMF issues are nuts. I feel like I'm actually normal. So I travel with a little strip of EMF blocking fabric, right? And I'll just like, it's just like a sheet basically. And I'll get a piece of that and put it behind the headboard of the bed and just tape it to the wall and then plug that. It has like a alligator clip with the ground, and I just plug that into the ground. And so that sucks all of the electric field that you would be sleeping in out into the ground where it should be. At our home, we have, every room is like a Faraday cage. It's all painted with shielding paint, everything's grounded, the whole deal, right? And so when I'm living in that environment, I really notice when I travel, I wake up with a headache or I just, don't sleep as well. And it's like, oh, dude, you get an EMF meter, you're sleeping in like a crazy amount of electric current, not to mention RF from Wi-Fi and smart technologies and all of that. So I go to great lengths, not only at home, but even when I travel to mitigate that. And I have a sense that some of the harmonics that you described earlier would have a very positive impact on the EMF environment. I would recommend you build one of these in a city, because living in a city is just not healthy for you in any way. But, out here I get cell service, right? But I sense that there's some sort of harmonizing effect based on the energetics, leaving aside the hard physics of actually doing blocking and shielding and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, that's like what I mentioned earlier, these kind of centripetal charge forces. You're kind of harmonizing the electromagnetic radiation that is, always present to some extent, and then just super amplified with these devices and techno, world that we live in. So, that's our basic approach, is this like harmonization. And we still, like I said, this is like engineering prototype. So the first one, full-size home that we're building is much bigger. We can get in and do more of that testing. But that's what this material was. So we kind of think of Buckminster Fuller as like the father of the geometry, and the father of the material is Professor Rustum Roy. And he was one of the most preeminent material scientists in the world, head of the biggest material science lab in the US. And for the last 20 years of his life, he was studying the science of whole person healing.
Really?
Yeah, he was
That's dope.
he was a
Wow.
crystal chemist, so he invented like cubic zirconia. And he was
Really?
he was
Whoa.
focusing on like how does the qigong master like focus her attention and heat up water or change the molecular structure of water. So we'd have like teams of scientists studying these anomalies, and he felt like he defined this new family of materials that were kind of like a chemically bonded ceramics or like crystals that could be formed at room temperature. And that led to this R&D project at US National Labs, where they were basically still the biggest environmental cleanup project in human history is like ongoing now, and it's going to stretch out through the next 80 years. And that is basically taking all this nuclear sludge that was created during nuclear bomb manufacturing during World War II at the Hanford site in Washington, and like solidifying that into pellets that they can basically do for like storing a mountain long term. And this technology was like, they called it stardust early on because it was like that they basically take this nuclear sludge, put it in a barrel, and today they use boron glass vitrification where they make it a glass pellet for storage. But this was like the new innovation there. And so they found it has radiation shielding properties where it's shielding both gamma and neutron radiation with like 2 inches of the material.
Holy shit.
Where it takes like 5 or 6 feet of really dense Portland concrete to have that same kind of shielding ability.
Or like lead, if that even does it.
Yeah, and because you can add certain aggregates into it, like metal aggregates that give it this kind of, because it's bonding to the metal and actually, merging with it, not degrading. Like if you add metal to Portland concrete, it would just erode.
That's really interesting. And that is the basis of the bioceramics.
Yeah, that's where this material was invented.
Well, yeah, it's probably a lot easier to deal with a Wi-Fi signal than it is, gamma rays coming from an old atom bomb or something.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also interesting. They like Under Armour has a line of sleepwear called bioceramic. Pajamas. It's Tom Brady is the spokesperson. They take these same phosphate oxide powders, bioceramic powder, and weave it through the threads of the clothing because it takes the body's heat and reflects it back in the far infrared spectrum. So there's the photobiomodulation effect. Yeah. Light is being modulated to resonate with biology, and that's
whoa.
So this is a far infrared light emitting structure as well.
Holy crap, that's so awesome. That was one of the next topics I wanted to get into, was the light and our relationship to light, and how the homes we build now, especially the energy efficient ones that are necessary if you live somewhere really hot or cold, right? Which is kind of most places in the States, is where we're cutting ourselves off from the most life-supporting energies in the known universe, which is the sun, right? So I'm always thinking, how can you integrate these different spectrum of light into the home and also, have the temperature that you prefer? So that's really interesting.
Yeah, that's it kind of comes down to like, how do we restore the light, water, and electromagnetic environment that humans evolved with for thousands of years, right? Just like back to the fundamentals of what it is to, dig your feet into the meadow and sit in a stone circle, and like those conditions, let's just replicate it inside the home.
Talk to me about the earthing floors. That was one of the coolest things when we came in here the other day. I was like, you're actually grounded when you're touching the floor in here. It's freaking amazing, dude. Because many of us use little grounding pads and things like that. And it's like, I don't know, there's debate as to whether or not those are healthy if you're exposed to an electric field, for example, because then your body becomes the ground and so on. But I think it's a really cool idea to just have your entire home grounded on the floor. Is that something that's feasible in, kind of in the scaling of the geoships?
It's not super scalable because this is basically a cob floor, right? So it's not scalable from like an industrialization perspective, but it is scalable because people want to get their hands in the mud and participate in the building, right? So like if it's fun and you're enjoying it and the community's coming together and doing it and you're like building the floor that you're going to have your feet on, and the kids and grandkids are going to have their feet on it. And like, do you need to do it in 4 hours? Can you spend, a week or so doing a floor? It's an enjoyable process.
What's the standardized floor for the first models that are running out? What's the floor made of?
Yeah, so initially we're doing basically a slab foundation, and then you can do like a ceramic coating on the floor.
Oh, wow.
And then you're integrating more and more into the product as it evolves. So eventually the foundation becomes part of the product, and then the floor becomes, could be an earthen floor like this, or it could be.
I mean, because concrete is conductive. I mean, even if this was just a concrete slab, you'd be grounded touching it too.
Yeah, just different levels of grounding.
Okay, right? So less DC current. This is probably super high DC current if you were to test it with like a skin voltage meter or something.
Yeah. And there's additives you can add to the concrete, like a little bit of like graphene additives.
Right, not the kind that people have in their bodies. Oh yeah, that made me think of something else. When we did the shielding in the bedrooms at our house, the shielding paint, which is like this crazy process. It's really interesting. You can add different powdered minerals into the paint to create more of an RF kind of blocking, and that sounds like the bioceramics kind of has that already inherently. Mm-hmm. Right? I don't understand how it works in terms of physics, but I remember, we're going to like add some of this powder or whatever, graphene or whatever it was, into the paint to make it even more kind of robust in terms of its ability to shield.
Yeah, it's a high dielectric ceramic. So, I think it's possible in the future that the whole home is actually generating power or storing power.
What?
Because it is a ceramic, high dielectric. So we can for sure store power. And there's this whole, organization in Germany, like Crystal Energy Cells, where they're really looking at they have these ceramic rods that have been lighting up a light bulb for a decade plus. And it's like working on coherent quantum fluctuations. So I think it's possible like the homes of the future are actually generate electrical energy.
Wow.
I recently signed up for this subscription service called Quantum Upgrade, and it's been a major game changer for my energy, EMF resilience, and the overall feeling in our home. Let me explain how it works. Quantum energy is the energy that supports all life in the universe. It's nonlinear, non-local, and has an immense potential for health when it's harnessed and directed to you or into your living environment. Through many years of research and development, Quantum Upgrade created one of the world's most potent sources of usable quantum energy. So when you sign up for their service, Quantum Upgrade associates your home, car, phone, business, and even your pet with this energy. The energy you receive with the Quantum Upgrade is a high consciousness field that you can even customize on the fly. For example, I like to set different booster levels at specific times, such as before a podcast recording or during sleep. It's pretty awesome. The Quantum Upgrade energy streaming service has already been studied and tested by independent institutes, doctors, and labs with phenomenal results in placebo-controlled double-blind studies. It's been shown to improve red and white blood cells and even reverse stages 1 and 2 of blood clotting in only a few minutes. You can try it right now risk-free with a 15-day free trial by visiting quantumupgrade.io. All you got to do is use the code Luke15 to activate your free trial. Again, you'll find it at quantumupgrade.io.
What about the infrastructure? On your website, there's beautiful renderings where you see, the 2-story model. There's a spiral staircase. There's, built-in kitchen counters and things like that. And there's obviously like bedrooms and closets and bathrooms and things like that. Mm-hmm. How does the build out of the inside, how does that work? What parts of that come with the home? When you have your flagship kind of 2-bedroom home or whatever, is plumbing and bathrooms and kitchens and all that stuff kind of part of the package?
Yep, it's all part of the package. So we just got successfully through the California factory built housing program. So certified at a state level, and it basically it includes all the mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems, cabinets, countertops, like move-in ready, and it's just one crew. Like our crew arrives and does the whole install in about 4 weeks. Maybe we can get that down to about 2 weeks. For
Are you serious?
2-bedroom, 2-bathroom.
Are you being like really ambitious? Or is that...
No, I think that the 4 weeks, the very first one that we're just starting to install now, I think it'll take about 6 weeks, but by the time we do 10, it'll be 4 weeks. And by the time we're doing thousands a year, it'll be 2 weeks, I think.
That's insane. Dude, we renovated our house in Texas. It took, there was a lot of, errors, let's call it that, on behalf of the builders and staff contractors. Whew, it took years off my life there, but it took 1.5 years, dude, just to like gut a house and renovate it.
Yeah.
I've been building one.
And a lot of times it's just waiting for different contractors and subcontractors to arrive, right? And all the scheduling. So,
and materials.
Because we got this, factory built housing certification, it basically means we don't have to have electricians or plumbers on site. It's just one group of people that does the whole thing from start to finish.
Does that make the permitting ride smoother?
Yeah, way smoother. So we take care of all the regulatory for the customer, and the local building departments are super, super enthusiastic. We have the head of the building department here in Nevada County, and the head of the city planning for Nevada City, like, come by all the time, and they're just excited to see,
what a blessing,
affordable,
man.
sustainable, fire resilient housing.
Yeah, I bet they're really excited about the fire resilient part here.
Yeah,
because there's so much public awareness about that. The fact that you guys made it through the regulatory threshold in California says a lot, because anyone, that has lived here understands that the bureaucracy here is absolutely insane to do anything,
Mm-hmm. That's what, if we could get through it in California, we can get through it in any state.
Yeah, that's epic. Well, I made a reservation a couple days ago for my Geoship. Like, I haven't even told my wife yet, actually. It wasn't that much money, but she mentioned on the way over here today, because I'm like so pumped on this. She's like, well, I feel like I would need to live in one for a month or something before we pulled the trigger. And I'm like, I don't know if we can do that. You're just going to have to trust my leadership on this one. But I went ahead and, made a deposit, if for nothing else, just to like help kind of support and build momentum, and just be like, yo, I put my flag in the dirt here, on this idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent the link to a couple of my friends, and we'll actually link to that, you guys, in the show notes today if anyone wants to reserve a dome. The link will be lukestory.com/geoship. And you mentioned earlier before we started, there was some kind of a discount for early reservations or something. Well, what was the details on that?
Yeah, anyone who makes a reservation through your link there will get $300 off. So instead of $500, it's $200.
Epic.
And it really does help us a lot, because we're creating a whole nother market. Like, there's no ceramic geodesic domes in the world today. So you have to kind of prove that people want this thing. And that's really important for like raising the capital we need to build factories and really scale. And our goal is to really build one of the biggest companies of the 21st century that is like building homes and communities. So thousands of homes out of each factory, and millions of homes a year. We have to get to 50 million homes a year to make a dent in like the need for housing on Earth. Right, in the next 40 years, there's another 2 billion people coming to the planet, and plus, the majority today who don't have good housing. So it's a huge market, and we like being able to make a reservation really makes a difference for us in terms of showing that, proving it.
I kind of figured that. And also, if you make a reservation, this is part of my motivation too, when these are rolling out and are in full production for public purchase, you're further ahead in the line, in the wait list, right?
Yep.
I was like, well, I better, make my claim now, because I don't know, I don't have a piece of land to put one on, but I hope to have one in the near future, somehow, some way. So I think that's also, if someone's interested and they don't want to wait, to the end of the line, it's a good way to get in. What about savvy investors that see opportunity here? I've seen on your website at various times, like, hey, I want to invest, and you have some pretty noteworthy people who have, had the faith to invest in the company. What does that look like for people that are interested in that end of it?
Yeah. You just go to our website. If you're an accredited investor, you can set up a call. And if you're non-accredited, we're also doing equity-based crowdfunding. So one of our key things is like to decentralize, progressively decentralize. So at the end, Geoship will be a multi-stakeholder cooperative. So customers and nature will own a about half of the company, as well as like your traditional stakeholders of investors and crew. And we'll have this perpetual purpose-driven trust that is Buckminster Fuller's mission statement. And you're basically buying shares in a high-growth technology company that is aiming to transform the biggest industry on earth, which is really residential housing. So I think we have the opportunity to be like just a giant.
Someday there'll be some people with non-buyer's remorse, like people that didn't invest in Apple early on or something, right?
Yeah.
There's a few savvy people that did with those really innovative, industry paradigm changing brands and companies, where very few people got in when it was affordable, and now
because they always seem niche right now. Like, who wants to live in a dome? Well, who wanted blue jeans? Who wanted personal computers? Who wanted electric cars? Who wanted all these things are like weird niche things that eventually become mainstream.
Yeah,
the round or non-rectilinear house is on the list.
I mean, I don't want to live in a rectal house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was another thing. Tell us about cost. Price per square foot, I guess, is a good way to do it. But also, like, start here. So your flagship 2-bedroom, I think, is going to be what, 1,700 square feet or something?
Mm-hmm. It's 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,660 square feet.
How much is that all in? Just like, retail price when that's available, where you can just like click buy on your site.
We're starting, it's about $300 a square foot here in California, which is actually less than you can have a conventional house built for, but it's still, more than what it costs to buy an existing house. And our goal is like through, scaling the manufacturing, we can get down to $150 or maybe even $100 a square foot, while still offering something that is like totally, the value proposition is, it can't burn or rot or corrode, and this next level health benefits, and the massively reduced, environmental impact to last a lot longer. Plus, it's way more efficient to operate. About 70% reduction in heating and cooling costs.
70%?
Yeah.
Whoa, that's a huge value add.
That's the goal.
Our power bill is like $800, right?
Yeah.
Like
there's a lot of inherent things going on in the dome, especially when it's engineered like this, where you just have a tight envelope and minimal surface area and these heat reflective properties and big insulation cavity that all kind of add up to really high levels of efficiency.
So do the math for me. $300 something a square foot for the 2-bedroom. That's $1,650. What's the price tag on that?
$500,000. And that's basically includes everything.
That's insane,
even the
dude.
appliances.
For like not only all the benefits we've talked about, but for a super dope house. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know, you go get a brand new house in a housing tract somewhere for $500,000. Like, it's kind of like,
and that's really like the optioned up version, right? This is like
right.
It's not a spiral staircase, like a helical staircase. So you have still like kind of that sacred center. You could have a tree or a totem of some sort in the center of the home, and it's a higher end appliances and cabinets and countertops. And then as we scale to thousands of homes a year, then we can just offer option to down versions.
Sure.
Still...
Yeah. And also, I think there's a lot of room for cottage industry around this as you scale too, right? I mean, I could see someone being like the decking specialist that understands the aesthetics and kind of the needs and goals of someone who would own a Geoship. Like, oh, cool. They're going to have dope plans that are all circular and connect the domes together in a really interesting way. So you're not pulling your hair out trying to explain it to your average like landscaping company, Fence Builders USA or whatever. Well, here's what I want to do, guys. It's kind of weird. I feel like there's going to be creative builders that are going to kind of mushroom their own businesses out of this core product. What do you think about that? Have you seen any of that, or have any visions or ideas on how that might unfold?
Yeah, definitely. That's part of our strategy is like create a cottage industry and market network around the product. And initially, we do everything initially because you have to start by doing everything.
Yeah.
And then as it scales, we can basically bring in more kind of certified, suppliers and contractors and whatnot to do a lot of that.
Yeah, you can have your own little ecosystem of like customization experts, right? Oh my God, dude, I just thought of something. I texted you earlier. Let me see if I can bring it up. So I was going to talk about lighting. Let me see if I have this here. Okay, dude. I always forget the name of this company. Colorbeamlighting.com. Have you heard of them yet?
No, but I looked up the site when you sent it earlier.
Dude, okay. Lighting is a huge issue, right? Blue light, flickering light, LEDs, fluorescent, garbage, right? These guys, they do residential and commercial. They created low voltage lighting systems that are all hardwired, all analog. So in other words, like you don't have smart stuff like Philip Hughes, where you have like freaking Wi-Fi routers on every lamp. Basically, it's just a train wreck. Our Airbnb has that. I was like, oh, unscrewing all of those first night. Like, no. But these guys, dude, what they could do in a dome, it could be a sick partnership, you know, if everyone's open to it. But they not only, okay, no EMF, no flicker, low voltage, so very little electricity pull, but they have totally like an infinite color spectrum customization capacity. And you can also set it to mimic the exact color spectrum of the sun throughout the day, every day of the year on an automated system, right? So it's like you don't have to worry about, oh, the blue lights are on and it's after sunset. It's like, boom, your house just mimics what's going on in the lighting outdoors. And also, if you wanted to like get freaky, you can have like, I don't know, different colored rooms at different times. And they have like kind of track lighting systems so that you don't, this is another annoyance of mine, you can have the lighting at the right level according to where it meets the eye, right? Like you ever notice if you go in a room where there's sconces, even if the light's kind of bright, it's much less irritating than overhead lighting. Like this canned overhead lighting is very annoying and not natural. It's not biocompatible. The sun is very rarely like right over your head, especially at midnight. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So another thing they're doing that's cool is you could basically put the lighting wherever you want it. Some overhead, some on the floor, on your, you know, behind your like cabinets in the kitchen. It's freaking insane. So I wanted to give them a shout out because they're like the first company I've seen really innovate lighting. Yeah. That covered all the bases that personally, like as a light fanatic, I would ever do. It's like, oh shit, I wish I would have thought of that. They nailed everything. Where you put them, the color they are, different time of the day, no EMF, no flicker, all the things. So
yeah, that's awesome. We've been hard to find lighting that has, you know, checked all the things that we're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, same for me, just on a personal level. You know, I remember when they banned incandescent lights, or they were about to. I went on Amazon, I bought like boxes and boxes of them, which is fine, but it was very expensive. And then when they put Orange Man back in the CEO seat at the Capitol, then now you can buy them again. I was like, oh, God damn it, you know. But, you know, things like that. And even incandescents aren't ideal. I think there's still better ways to do lighting if you get some science behind it so that you can create a really beautiful spectrum that's compatible during the day or the night and all that stuff.
Is that company you're talking about LEDs?
Yeah, they're LEDs, but they're designed specifically to have zero flicker, which is one of the main issues of LED. And also another issue with most LEDs, you have very narrow bandwidth of color, right? It's like within a very narrow nanometer spectrum. And so they have like really like an infinite spectrum of color that you can also mix and match. So you could have like a full spectrum lighting situation indoors during the day when it's supposed to be full spectrum, and then narrow it down to the, you know, orange, red, amber spectrum at night. Yeah, it's insane, dude. It's like the coolest thing ever. Yeah, one of my next dreams is to have a home that's just lit with that only, right? Just like you don't even have normal fixtures. Yeah. You just have like and you can do a dimmer without creating flicker, which is another problem with lights that are dimmable. Dimmer switches are a train wreck anyway, because they make a shit ton of dirty electricity. But when you dim lights, it makes them flicker, like traditional bulbs, which is also, you know, another issue.
Yeah, we're you know, that's why I'm grateful to be having the conversation with you and to develop the product together over time, because, you know, our goal is to really make the world's healthiest home. So
I mean, you're already like 99% there based on this conversation. So
yeah, there's a lot of little things that we can do that we want to.
I mean, fine tuning the light is like, man, you're like really, you're already doing something that's so innovative and like disruptive, but the fact that you're thinking about the energetics and the EMF and the mold, the air quality, energy efficiency, being friendly to the environment, longevity, generational legacy properties, right? Like where your great grandkids can still live in the same dome you built in 2026.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
That's what, why we're so excited about this product from like the first principles, the geometry, the materials, like injection molded ceramic composite geodesic homes. You will never, I think you'll never be able to make something more affordable and more sustainable at scale. Like a mud house or something, you're using all materials, within a couple 100 feet and doing a lot of labor is another thing. But when it comes to like a product, I think this is really what scales to like billions of homes like this. I believe this could be the most common form of housing on Earth at some point in the future.
That's a beautiful vision. And it's funny to someone who's maybe more traditionally minded, if they look at a photo of a dome, they might think, oh, that's kind of weird. But imagine, like, it's actually weird to live in a box.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I can kind of foresee a point in the future where we look at like old square buildings and just find them grotesque. And this will be like the norm.
Yeah, especially as we start measuring some of these, biomarkers and showing that it's the norm because, that's what our bodies and nature want.
Do you have plans to do like check brain waves and HRV and things like that?
Yeah, we've got all the equipment and are starting to do some of the
No way.
the testing.
Oh man, let me know when that comes out. I'll blast it out on social and do everything I can.
Yeah.
That's one element, right, is like of what you're doing is very esoteric and energy and harmonizing. And for people that are more left brain, that's harder to latch onto.
Yeah.
But when it's quantifiable, everyone's in.
That's the thing. We have like our CTO was like championship NASCAR team and then went to Tesla for 7 years and was the head of vehicle dynamics at Tesla. So they're measuring things that were hard to measure, vibrations and just the overall integration of the car. He personally delivered the first 10 Model S's, at Tesla, and then went to another home building startup and is now working with us, where it's the same challenge here is like these kind of subtle energy effects, vibrational quality. How can we start to measure those things so that we can actually tune the engineering and manufacturing to optimize for it over time? It's
right.
Big part, I think, of what
that's so cool. I'm bummed that your guy left Tesla because after he left, they did a terrible job with the acoustics.
Yeah,
we bought my wife one of those. I forget which model, and it's like my bad. We didn't test drive it because she had another model before that. She loved it. I wouldn't drive one personally for a number of reasons. Crazy levels of EMF being one of them. Her life, she wanted one. She's like, shouldn't we test drive it? I go, that's the same shit. It's just like a different model, right? Whatever. We just go in and we drive off the lot. We sign the paperwork and we're like a couple 100 yards away. She goes, do you hear that noise, that booming, like vibrating? That feels weird. I was like, no, I don't notice. And she's like, okay. And we kind of kept noticing it. We got home. By the time we got home, she's like, I can't drive this car. It's got like this thing where it's like a air pressure thing, kind of like you're changing altitude in an airplane. And it's got this low frequency resonance every time you go over a bump. It's like, and it hits your eardrums in a really specific way. So we're like, we can't have this. So I emailed them and no one ever answers. And finally, like I sent all these letters to their legal department. I'm like, hey, it's only been 72 hours or whatever. And they just ghosted us. And then I realized through researching some of the laws in Texas, they don't have like the lemon law thing you have here in California. So you would have to litigate against Tesla to get them to take the car back even 24 hours later.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Thankfully, eventually she just got used to it. But it's like terrible in the aspects that you're describing.
Well, yeah, he was not focused on the acoustics and that kind of energetic qualities, just like on the drive experience. Like how does it
Yeah.
Whether it's just still, and it's similarly, our head of product engineering left Tesla and went to this company called Zoox, where they developed the first robo-taxi. And, then when you take out the steering wheel and you no longer have an engine what can the car become, right? Instead of like 4 seats that are facing forward and a steering wheel, it becomes more like a room where you can sit and face each other. And I think the same with the geodesic home of the future. Still, these first products we're doing is still like there's walls and floors and walls, but really all these are structural points, and this is like a whole nother canvas to come in and kind of rethink what it is to live in the round.
Yeah, yeah.
It opens up a whole nother
and
frontier.
What about going back to the kind of communal living, or even if you just had your own compound and you want different structures? As I was saying, you could have a really creative deck builder, create a bridge to your little office over there, or even have it covered or something. I think the other day you said, well, some of the larger ones, like, they're actually just cut off on one side. So going in the other room is like a secondary or tertiary or fourth dome, but you don't have to walk outside to get to the other one, right? It's like, that's your bedroom and over there is your office. But it's like, what's the modular aspect of putting multiple domes together on kind of one single family home idea?
Yeah. So basically, it's a modular product. So 2 different size domes, the 36-foot diameter, which is about 1,100 square feet. And then with the loft, it's like 1,600, and a 20-foot diameter dome, which is about 40% bigger than this. And you can connect those in a lot of different kind of configurations. It might be like 2 of the bigger domes, you can connect them in a way where they're kind of merged together, so it doesn't feel like you're walking through a hallway to get from one to another.
Right.
Or you can build 2 next to each other, and maybe you enter in through the connector place that is like a greenhouse and kind of mudroom thing. Or you can just put them in proximity to one another, maybe around kind of a courtyard, because sometimes it's nice to walk outside to your office that's 50 feet away or 20 feet away or whatever it is.
That's cool. That's really exciting to me, just having, I don't know, because it's like, especially if you had them separated, each one could have their own personality. Or we were talking the other day, I had the idea, since the windows are all triangles and they all look like, at least in this one, they're all the same size, you could get a dope stained glass artist to make kind of inserts, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, then you're kind of stuck with that. And when we left, Allison's like, well, you just have your small little ceremony room or meditation room, and that one is all yellow film on the windows or whatever. That's like your yellow room. There's like so many different things you could do, where in a traditional home, I don't know, it would be weird if each room was just completely different, or different wings of the home were radically different, where I feel like with this, you could create a little micro universe within each modular piece. Like each dome could have its own little world and a completely different energy and aesthetic.
Yeah.
And also just purpose of use, right?
Yeah. And there's, that it makes, like, you don't want to maybe meditate in your bed because you're used to sleeping there. And when you're meditating, you're trying to go for a different experience. So it makes sense to have spaces that are, tailored like that. And also in the community design, when you bring in like, weaves of paths and kind of gateways and admissions. So when you cross this threshold, it's like a different quality of space, and then that can really be supportive at a community level as well as like at the house level.
Yeah, there's more intentionality around the purpose of each space.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things, like working from home. I'm sure many people who do so, like I do, can share this experience. It's like when I go into my office, it's sometimes harder to get work done because I'm still in my house. You know what I mean? It's really easy to screw around and like procrastinate. But it's also convenient because I don't have to drive anywhere and like commute to my office, so it doesn't feel as much like I'm going to work in a burdensome way. Mm-hmm. I feel like if this dome was in my backyard and I had to walk down a little path to go into my office, I'd be like, yes, I could set that space up in a way that maximizes productivity, creativity, and so on, and really just insulate myself in there and do what I'm supposed to be doing, yet not feel like I had to commute to work.
Mm-hmm. And insulate yourself, yet be super connected to the natural world, to the earth through your feet, through the vibrational quality is like being in a stone circle in a meadow.
100%. When I have my whole compound of geoships, there's going to be a very specific dome that is used for plant medicines. That's part of my vision too. I'm like, the energy feels really good, stone cold sober in here. I'm like, oh, you could really go to some places if that's your thing. All right, I think that's it, my friend. So show notes will be lukestory.com/Morgan. And for those that want to reserve a dome, lukestory.com/Geoship, and you get a couple $100 off. What is it, $300 off reservation? So good way to reserve your place in line. And then on their website, you can look into the investment opportunity, which is really attractive to me. Unfortunately, I'm like, my pockets, you could dump me upside down and nothing would come out right at the moment. But, hopefully that'll change at some point in the near future. But man, I honor you. I honor your mission. I honor that you honored the calling, right? Of your, the experience you had in Portugal on the beach and on the boat, and that you followed the charm of your Dharma. I always find it just to be so beautiful when someone hears that, sees it, acknowledges it, and then walks toward it.
Yeah, thank you. And just excited to be on Geoship is really interesting because you're bringing together, I feel like it's a vision of the future that is a true vision. Like at some point in the future, we have these villages that are non-rectilinear homes that are helping us connect deeper to one another and to the earth. And because we're offering this like product to people who already are visionaries, they have a vision for a new paradigm and living with a retreat center or a home or a village. It's like this collective antenna that's forming, so it's really that future like wants to be born and is just coming through us, and this coming together as this sort of movement that is so ripe.
Yeah, it's cool. It's like a central beacon. You just actually sparked another topic that I wanted to cover, but I didn't, but I can cover it briefly. And that is retreat centers, right? I think now many of us are realizing like, wow, I want to have a central location where a community can come gather and do intentional work, whether that's yoga, meditation, plant medicines, whatever. The idea, I think, is very daunting to many people because you got to find the land, the infrastructure, the building, the expense, but especially the time, right? If you're talking about being able to throw up a dome in 4 to 6 weeks and then eventually shorter than that, if you had the resources and you had the appropriate piece of land, you could have a retreat center up and running in like freaking 4 months. You know what I mean? Maybe a little longer. There's other administrative things involved in all of that. But in terms of like having a central meeting place to do great things, this sounds like a really clear path toward that.
And I think they go well together. Like a lot of times you'll have the retreat center as part of the village, right? Maybe the village starts with the retreat center and then expands into more permanent or seasonal housing. Like the Ananda village we have here in Nevada County. It's been there for like 70 years, and it's kind of a combination of retreat center and village, and
cool.
Works that way.
Can one go there? Is that someplace I could go see? No, it's like private.
I'm not sure. You can definitely go see it. You can definitely go see it. Yeah, but I'm not sure about the retreat center aspect.
Okay, got it. Yeah,
the model is.
I'm just asking selfishly because I'm trying to like pack in every possible experience while I'm here in this beautiful place.
And if you go see it, the first home that was built there for Ananda, the kind of guru, was a geodesic dome.
Really?
Right? And yeah, they built geodesic domes, and now it's kind of a museum or like a place to walk through.
Cool. Well, in alignment with what you're doing in our conversation, our final of 5 Airbnbs here is a geodesic dome out in the woods on a creek.
Okay.
A wooden one,
Yeah.
But I'm excited. So maybe that'll be like the tester for Allison. We're like, how do you feel in here? If you like this one, Geoship's even way cooler,
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, it's got to have it's the combination of the materials and the geometry that I think is really, where that kind of vibrational quality.
Yeah, totally. Otherwise, it's just kind of an aesthetic thing. You're just like, oh, it looks cool in here. It's interesting to the eye, but you might not have the magnification of the energies in the same way. Shit, I keep thinking I'm done, and then I'm not. It's blame it on the room. Another cool thing, so the one we're in now, for those watching, obviously you see the interior is white. The exterior is kind of a, muted green sort of color. It's very monochromatic with the environment. But when we were at the factory the other day, you were showing me a little display table of a bunch of different pigmentation options that you're exploring. And there were some really cool like terracotta colors and different things like that. And if I remember right, you're like, yeah, it's like kind of a really easy thing to change the color of the material. Did I get that right?
Yeah, it's all integral color, so it's not painting anything over. It's just adding different minerals to the mix that gives it these kind of earth tones.
That's right. So there's no painting necessary.
No painting.
Like you're just like, yeah, cool. I want the actual material to be that color. Great.
Yeah.
That's dope. Because, VOCs is the whole other issue. There's no VOCs in here either. We didn't even talk about that with air quality.
Yeah.
All the shit, all the adhesives and stuff in every corner of the home. You really notice this when you go in a new home, right?
Yeah.
The carpeting and the paint and
the new car smell.
Yeah, all the sealant and stuff. It's just like, oh my God. Yeah, that's cool. Now, if one was so inclined, say you like that 70s hippie looking, weathered wood look, could you put cadding over this, knowing it's going to not last that long, but just for shits and giggles, just if you wanted that classical kind of wood exterior?
Could you put wood over it?
Yeah, like could you, if you had a builder that had that kind of skill, I mean, could you essentially like put a skin on the outside of it that was wood if you wanted that kind of look?
I mean, so the material bonds to wood really well. And it actually, they did another big restoration project was in China where they went and tried to restore all their ancient temples. And part of that is like they didn't want to use, epoxy and concrete. They wanted to figure out what those original kind of plasters and stuff were. And they found these, magnesium-based plasters that were on logs from like 1,000, 1,500 years ago, and the log was preserved because of this like charge differential that allows it to breathe but doesn't let water in. So basically, wood is a good substrate for these chemically bonded ceramics. And could you make the outside wood? Potentially, you could also put a different skin in the mold that kind of makes it look like wood, right?
Right.
And kind of get that in different ways.
Yeah, cool. All right, dude. Well, thank you so much for everything you do. Thanks for making the time to sit down with me. I never know. I travel to a new place sometimes. I'm like, hey, I'm this guy. I have a podcast. And it's like, some people get it and are receptive and others don't. I never hear back from them. So I was like, yes, we're in. So thanks again.
Yeah, thank you, man. Really, really a pleasure to sit down and delve in together.